We had been going through this for so long. Drink, self-detox, go clean for a few days, and then the cycle started again. For the last 4 years, I watched this man that I had fallen so hard for deteriorate and dealt with the monster he became when the vodka made its return yet again. I used to refer to myself as his mistress. The bottle was his wife. He got so defiant when I said it, but our entire relationship was proof. He had been lucky up to this point that his liver was still healthy, but I feared that that was no longer the case. In the last 6 weeks, he had had 3 alcohol withdrawal seizures, collapsing, foaming at the mouth, shaking, unable to even tell the EMTs his own name, let alone anyone else's. It's one of the most terrifying things I have ever experienced, and I can remember very few times when I've felt more helpless. Now here we were in the aftermath of his first drunken accident, a fall down a flight of stairs while I sat here in a panic, waiting for him to show up, and having no idea where he was or if he was even okay. This time, he completely bypassed the hospital. He was immediately taken to a detox facility, where he finally called after I had spent 24 hours beside myself, envisioning him face down in an alley somewhere. He told me he was in the hospital. No hospital makes its patients use a payphone, let alone stand in line waiting to. That was my first clue that he wasn't at a hospital. It was confirmed when I called the number back and was told it was an alcohol detox facility. Suddenly, I remembered sitting in my therapist Catherine's office for my first appointment 2 years ago, exhausted, guarded, depressed, and consumed by fear, guilt, and hopelessness. Talk about an emotional Molotov cocktail. Now, here I was 2 years later, still fighting so hard to help someone who clearly was not ready to be helped. The repercussions were becoming more than I could handle. I feared that he was dying right before my eyes, and it was absolutely shattering my heart to see what this once stable and healthy man was becoming. His body was shouting at him for help, and he was blatantly ignoring it, continually insisting he was fine. "Sweetie, I'm fine." It was a sentence I was so sick of and angered by, because I knew he absolutely wasn't fine. He was barely able to walk normally, in and out of hospitals and detox, and unable to control even the most basic physical functions, and he was still flat out denying that anything was wrong. I begged and pleaded with him to go to the hospital, even offered to go with him. He refused every time, instead shelling out more, "Sweetie, I'm fine," like he really believed that if he just said it enough, I'd start believing it. Even after all of this, he still insisted that none of the seizures had anything to do with drinking, despite that every single discharge report that was given to him clearly stated alcohol withdrawal seizure as the diagnosis. It was only after the 3rd seizure that they finally admitted him. Even all these years later, despite how well I knew him, he was still lying to me, which is part of the addict mentality. They don't do it to be cruel. Well, most don't. Certainly there are psychopaths out there who drugs and alcohol make that much more evil. It's part of their sickness, part of their shame.